some of these pictures from the old days?
Oh, I'd love you to.
Can you remember the First World War? That was before your time, was it?
Oh no, I was 10 months old when the First World War finished. Because I was born in February, you see, of 1918.
So you were born in just really quite close to London, weren't you?
Yes, about 6 stations away. I got married March the 10th, 1940. And, oh, I must tell you this because it sounds so daft now when I think about it. But my mother-in-law had a little shop, you see, and this was before we were married. And Fred knew he would be going into the forces because he would be called up, and he said, "I would like to go into the Air Force." And when the brown paper came through the post, we were so daft. We actually danced round the kitchen table because he was going into the Air Force. But at that time, everyone thought that the war would be finished by Christmas, and that was in 1940. And he came home in 1946. The church was opposite to where my mum lived, and at that time I was staying with her. And so Mum and I went over to get our gas masks, and my poor mum, she was so petrified, and of course we had to carry it everywhere we went. Then of course when Janet was born, it was one that I had to carry, and it was dreadful. I had to lay her in it and then pump the oxygen.
Can you remember the planes coming over then at night?
Oh yes.
What was that like?
Oh, terrible. Especially the buzz bombs. They were the ones that were pilotless, and then suddenly you would hear a click and silence, and then you waited for it to explode. My sister was a civil servant, and one night a week she had to be in London fire watching, and that one night a week Janet and I slept in her bed at my mum's house. And in the morning my dad started work at 6 and came home at 8 for breakfast, and he said they got a bashing across the line last night, and we walked to our house and to the bottom of the road, and my home was no longer there. There was the WVS, the ambulance people, Salvation Army, all there to try and help. But I can just remember my daughter just screaming. I can hear her screaming now. I really can. That was such a shock.
So your home just disappeared completely?
That's right.
Did you ever get any compensation for that?
Oh no.
Well, how did you live then?
Well, I say no. Eventually when I went back with my next door neighbour, we went to Bexley Heath, and they gave us £16 and a navy and a grey blanket. The bombing got quite bad, so I decided to evacuate with Janet, and we had to go to Crayford in Kent to sign up and to put our names down for us to go. And I made friends with a lady, and she had a little girl, and sometime before that her husband advised her to evacuate. Then she had 2 little boys, and this first time she was walking up the hill, this buzz bomb came down, and the 2 boys ran one way and the mum and the little girl ran the other way. The two boys were killed. So when I met her, there was just her and the little girl, and we made great friends.
Did you actually lose any friends in the war?
Yes, one of my ex-boyfriends was killed in the war. He was never found, and another one lost his leg, and but there were five of us ladies in a row that had our husbands away, and we were great friends because we had so much in common. There was only one of them whose husband didn't come home, so I was very, very fortunate.
Can you remember when the war ended then? How did you know it had finished?
Yes, I remember that vividly, because there was my sister and her young man, and my brother-in-law and my other sister, and we all went up to Trafalgar Square, where everyone had congregated, and oh, it was so exciting that was the end of the war, and I remember that vividly. But what I do remember, we went down the side of Charing Cross and went into this cafe and had something to eat, and then we discovered that it was horse meat. I remember that. Is that silly? No. But what is so sad to my mind, of course they couldn't send the men home all straight away. They had to come home gradually. So by the time my husband came home, all the excitement of them coming home had gone. And he walked up the road in a pinstripe suit that the forces gave them, and a trilby, and he walked up there, and no one came out to cheer or anything. It was just as though he'd been to work. Yes.